Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this afternoon session. Today, we are celebrating women in engineering, and these are our sessions on engineering to save the world. This afternoon session is really to celebrate women in engineering. You could be surprised, intrigued, and inspired by what is going to be talked about today by our speakers. We're going to be hearing from Titi, Helena and Kelly, and we're going to hear about their careers journeys, their amazing work in engineering fields and exciting projects that they're working on. Our guest speakers are going to be joining us and telling us their career stories, sharing their experience and answering any questions that you may have. My name's Rachel, I'm from Founders for Schools and I'm going to be hosting the session today. We hope the session today will help you make informed decisions about your career pathway and how to get there. If you're watching us from school or from home, please do listen and think about any questions that you have and pop those into the chat for us. Any questions that we don't get around to answering, we will pass them on to our speakers today and get back to you with those. We are recording the session today and it's going to be featured on our Founders for Schools platform and also on our YouTube channel. So sit back, enjoy the presentations, make some notes and think about any of your burning questions. So first of all, thank you very much to our speakers for joining us today and giving up their time and agreeing to share their story. I'm going to first introduce our first speaker, who is Titi. Titi is a Senior Process Safety Engineer at Supercritical Solutions. And what I found interesting is that Titi spent some time working on the new Elizabeth line as a safety and reliability engineer. So that's one of the new rail lines across London. So Titi, I'm going to hand over to you if you want to go through your slides and tell us all about that.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'll just share my slides now so we can go through. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Titi, as I've been introduced by Rachel, and I'm a Senior Process Safety Engineer at Supercritical Solutions. I'll share a bit more about what we do there later on in my presentation. So I'm just going to talk about the role of a chemical engineer, what you can do as a chemical engineer, and basically how I became an engineer myself. So the role of a chemical engineer, I found this graphic online and I just thought it was funny because a lot of times we have misconceptions about what engineering is all about and what chemical engineering in particular can be about. So different people think of different things. And really, I think generally, you keep discovering what engineering is about as you progress on in your career as well. I definitely am, still seeing what other opportunities are available to me. But basically, chemical engineering is much more than, being in a lab or solving equations as you do in university, or, you could also be in a plant, but maybe not, you might not be, and you could be sat behind a computer or maybe not, so different things. But yeah, we'll talk more about that. And also, I think one of the reasons why this sort of programs are really important is because when we do, like, this is a screenshot of Google. Basically, this morning I looked at what you find as images when you Google what chemical engineering is about, and whilst you might see some things which are true, you might be working in a lab, or you might be, working with some dangerous substances and all of that. This is not the entirety of it. And so, attending these type of events where you get to hear somebody else's experience and, is also quite good and see what an engineer can look like as well. So this is just very important as well. So if we look at what the definition of chemical engineering is, I just want to point out that, it's really about moving, how do we produce, transform and transport materials, moving it from raw materials into finished products. Like, we have so many raw materials in the world today, and it's basically moving it from what we have to what we need, basically. So what we need could be in different industries such as pharmaceuticals, energy industry where I work now, environmental engineering, the oil and gas industry, you know, materials. Pretty much, if you look through anything that you use or you come across rather on your day-to-day life, you know, an engineer is involved in it. As you know, Rachel mentioned before, we use the trains to get from one point to the other. Engineers are massively involved in things like that. And specifically, I work as a safety engineer, so I'll be sharing a bit more about that. But before I share that, I just wanted to, you know, give you a bit of understanding into what you could do as a chemical engineer. There are so many places you could work. You could work as in research or academia. You could work in a chemical plant, which is what we usually see when we do our Google search, right? You could work in, you know, paper. People, chemical engineers are involved in making paper. They're involved in making petrochemicals, and we have plastics all around us. So chemical engineers are involved in that as well. The clothes we wear, the energy we use for heating up our homes, our toothbrush, shampoos, toothpaste, shampoos, all of that, those fast-moving consumer goods as they are called. We're also involved in, chemical engineers are also involved in that personal care, semiconductors that are in our phones, our laptops, our electronic equipment. Engineers are involved in that as well. Our drugs, our foods, our beers, you know, they're just engineers are involved in almost everything really. So it's not to just think about, oh, you know, the tough mathematical equations that we have to solve in school, but it's more about, okay, how is this applied? How is this useful in practical life? So these are all the things that chemical engineers work in. And, you know, in all these sectors that I've mentioned, we need safety engineers, and that is what I do. And what that basically means is that in all the design and the operation and the maintenance of these plants that create all these useful products, we want to make sure that that's done safely so that we don't hurt the environment, we don't hurt people, we don't hurt the reputation of our companies, and we also don't, you know, damage, make, you know, financial losses as well. You could also be involved in policy, in, you know, making the government understand the reasons why we need to do what we, you know, need to pass some laws. So, for example, we all know that there's issues, challenges with climate change, and, you know, chemical engineers should also be involved in, you know, creating policies. If you're working in any other part of engineering as well, you make policies to ensure that, you know, there's money is put in the right places and all of that. So design firms and environmental engineering as well. So this is just a snapshot of what you can do as a chemical engineer. So now coming to my own journey, I've always been curious about how things are made. So how do we go from raw materials to finished products? Even growing up, you know, just being able to cook food with my mom and see how, you know, we go from using tomatoes and we make a nice stew as well. What happens when you bake as well? I was always curious about those type of things and interested in, you know, hands-on and practical activities. And when I got into secondary school, and I loved mathematics and physics, and then I went on to study an undergrad and postgraduate degree in chemical engineering. So I've worked in the oil and gas and the rail industry as well, where I was able to, you know, work as a safety engineer to ensure that, you know, these plants and these train lines are safe, to make sure that, you know, once you do get on the train, there are safety systems that help to make sure that you do get home safely. And I'm currently working in clean energy. So the company I work for now, we are working on a hydrogen technology, an electrolyzer technology in order to produce hydrogen from the electrolysis of water. And basically that is what we're trying to do, is to produce clean energy so that we can ensure that, you know, for the future, we don't have to rely as much on fossil fuels anymore. And whilst I've been working on these, you know, different industries and on these different projects, I've been able to develop skills in listening and speaking as well, solving problems, and, you know, creativity, because we have to make sure that in solving these issues, we have to bring about creative solutions. We have to do what has not been done before so that, you know, we can get what we don't have at the moment. And working teamwork as well, because you work with other types of engineers, electrical engineers, civil engineers, you know, different types of engineers, and you have to make sure that you understand them and you're all speaking the same language. So I've worked on different projects, so on refineries, oil and gas sites, and like I've mentioned before, the Elizabeth Line Railway project. I was part of the safety engineers that worked on making sure that this new digital railway that was commissioned is we needed to make sure that it's safe for people as they go in, particularly for the signaling infrastructure. I also get to do other cool stuff as an engineer. So I think during my internship, I was able to go offshore as well. And I got a chance to ride on a helicopter, which I thought was really cool. And then I've also been able to network with different engineers, and even visit the Buckingham Palace as well, travel to different places, and volunteering, even speaking to people just on platforms like these, for example, on why engineering is a really cool career to go into. And I think it's just really important because, yes, there are tough paths. Yes, you have to be consistent. Yes, you have to work hard at it. But I think overall it's quite fulfilling. And yeah, I just, welcome any questions. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Titi. That was fantastic. And it's really interesting to see your journey to where you are today. When you were at school, so you said you really like maths, physics, and you love cooking with mum. Are there any sort of activities that you did while you were at school that were really helpful for kind of building the skills that you were talking about to get into engineering?
Yes, so I think, working on different projects as well with people, I think just looking at the sort of skills I've been able to take it on from school into my workplaces or my career is really about, asking questions, being curious, also listening, and thinking about things creatively, thinking, okay, if I don't have this particular thing, like, why does this work the way it does? And if I don't have this particular thing, what can I use to substitute it, or how can I go around this problem? Having that sort of growth mindset, like, how can we solve this issue? Not necessarily, oh, there's an issue, I'm done, it's not working out anymore, those type of things. I'm working with people as well. I think that is really, really important, because I think that's a common myth as well that we have about engineering. You're not just going to be stuck or sat, by yourself working. You're going to be working with people, which can be both a good thing and, not so great thing. But, being able to work with people is just really a good skill to have. Yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you're at school, you might be working on a problem by yourself. Maybe you're doing maths problems by yourself, but actually, as you go through school and you get into the work environment, you do work in teams. What kind of diversity is there in your team? Is there kind of a gender balance in your team? Are there lots of people like you, lots of different people? What's the kind of split at your work now?
Yeah, so I think over the years, it's been quite majority male dominated. And I guess that's, definitely something that has been propagated through the years. But I think like that is why even more, I take it even more seriously to be able to, come for it, go and attend events like this and actually speak and say, hey, I'm an engineer. Because a lot of times I sometimes, even when maybe I'm not at work or something, I go to events and I speak to people and they ask, oh, what do you do? And I say I'm an engineer. And it's like the shock or the surprise on their face. And I'm like, no, that shouldn't be how it should be. Like, it's anybody can be an engineer. We need to make sure, especially females, and we need the diversity because as engineers, right? Like I mentioned in my presentation, if you look around you, you'll see a piece of engineering everywhere, and we are all using products that are made by engineers. And so we have to all have an input into making those products, because if not, it will be made by a certain set of people that you can't think about everything yourself, really. So you need to have that sort of diversity of thought, and that comes from when you have diversity of people as well.
Yeah, I like that. That's fantastic. When you were when you look around at the people you work with now, have you all come from the same kind of background in STEM subjects, or is there quite a mix of different university graduates? Have people done apprenticeships to get into the career that you're doing?
Yes, definitely. There are different routes into engineering. I've kind of, I guess, taken the more traditional, as you say, routes, but also, yeah, there's apprenticeships. There are people that have, come in from different, maybe sort of science subjects and then come into engineering as well. I think that's really important because, again, that diversity of thought, that different way of thinking, we need those different ways of thinking in order to be able to sort of like, bring about creative solutions. Because if we're all thinking the same way, then we're just going to keep doing what we've been doing. And as you can see around us, the challenges that we have, climate change, sustainability, these are things that, we cannot solve by doing the same thing all the time, basically.
Fantastic. Yeah, there'll be hopefully some students doing a whole range of different subjects now at secondary school, and maybe some primary school students thinking about, what they might want to do when they get to choose things at secondary. And yeah, having sort of design skills and being able to collaborate with other people, I think is really key for getting into this.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree. And I mean, just one more thing is that, it's really good to have another myth that we have is that because engineering, the way engineering is, you don't have to be creative. Like if you're creative, you should go into the arts, which is good as well. But I think that, we underestimate the amount of creativity that is needed in engineering. Fine, we work to standards, but also we need to sort of think outside the box sometimes because, and then still see how we can be guided by standards. So standards guide us, there has to be ways of doing things, but, that creativity is needed to say, okay, what do we mean by this? And how can we, still work by the standards, but also come up with a greater solution or a better solution, basically. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, TT. And so I think that probably leads quite nicely onto our next two speakers. We have Helena and Kelly from Engenuity, and they're going to talk to you about a really exciting project of theirs called Skills Miner, an award-winning Skills Miner game and lessons which are enabling players to immerse themselves in engineering using the Minecraft model. And I think lots of you be really interested to hear about that project and how you can get involved in that. So I'll hand over to Kelly and Helena from Engenuity. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. That's really interesting as well, TT. Thank you. Yes, I'm Helena. I'm the Senior Product Manager at Engenuity. So Engenuity is a skills charity. We support engineering and manufacturing to face future challenges around skills and to encourage people to become engineers. So we need that next generation of people coming in. So my job is to create resources and games for young people and teachers, because also we need teachers on board as well to get them to speak to young people. Those games, like Rachel was saying, they're built in Minecraft and we've called them Skills Miner. The idea is that we're trying to introduce young people to careers in engineering and manufacturing in a more engaging way. We're also aware that a lot of people aren't exposed to engineering and manufacturing careers unless perhaps one of their parents works in one of the industries. Otherwise, it's just kind of like a big grey wall and no one really gets to see behind it necessarily. So we want to try and bring that into the classroom in an environment that people are comfortable with. So I've got two daughters, 14 and 11. I'm really passionate about improving diversity in engineering and manufacturing and beyond that as well, probably, to be honest, and helping to bust some of the myths that there are around the industry as well, just so people are going into it with their eyes open and not full of all these kind of misconceptions. I'll just hand over to Kelly so she can introduce herself as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Kelly. I'm a project manager at Engenuity, and I have project managed the delivery of a couple of the Skills Miner games and also another digital product where we've worked on a different game for a larger manufacturer, which is all about encouraging young people into engineering and manufacturing through apprenticeships. I'm also the partnership manager for the National Manufacturing Skills Task Force, and so I work with the members of that task force, of which there's 19, all different trade bodies across manufacturing, government partners and training partners to help encourage young people and experienced talent into engineering and manufacturing. And like Helena and like TT, I'm passionate about our industry. There are some amazing jobs available, and some of which TT alluded to earlier.
And I think probably with Skills Miner, it just looks better if I can show it to you. So I'm not playing this in real time. This is a pre-recorded video. Okay, so I'm just going to share, and then I'm going to talk over the top of it. But I think it's just easier if you can see it. So I will get that up on my screen a sec. Hopefully you can all see that okay. Okay, great. So when we created, actually, do you know what? I'm going to stop it for a second because I'm just going to do a little bit of an intro into how we got to this point. So this game is around aerospace. Okay, now we've got a couple of different ones, but this one is very much around aerospace. The principles within this can also be applied across several different sectors. But we're very well connected, Ingenuity, so we've got lots of fantastic people that we can speak to, employers and in trade bodies that Kelly was alluding to there as well. So we built this with an industry advisory group. So we went and spoke to organisations like Airbus, GKN, Civil Aviation Authority, lots of other ones. And we asked them, what would you want from new starters in 10 years' time? So some of you on the phone now, you know, maybe you're 12, 13, 14, 10 years' time, you're going to be going into some of these jobs. What are you going to need in 10 years' time? So some of the things are what you'd expect. So traditional things, physics, material properties, these things aren't going to go away if you're working in these industries, but there's a lot of new things too. So they really want people who are going to think differently. They want more diversity, exactly as TT said earlier. Diversity of thought is paramount to ensure that we can solve the challenges of the future. We can't do that with just the same people in the room. The other things were coming up as well, like sustainability, clearly critical for the success of, you know, the planet. We absolutely cannot do anything without thinking about sustainability now. Coding, digital skills, and then some of these other things around creativity and problem solving and teamwork and communication. All of these are coming through really, really strongly. We can't just all sit in our own little box and work. We need to be able to, you know, speak to each other and share and do that in a compelling way. So these skills are becoming more and more important all the time. So in those conversations with the industry advisory group, we came up with 4 themes to focus on. So I'd love you to play these games at some point. I'm just going to show you game 1. Okay, now there's more which I can talk to you about briefly, but I'll just show you this game 1. That's all we've got time for. So this is about constructing the aircraft. Okay, so the idea is that you're an apprentice on your first day in your new job, and you come into a hangar. So you can see behind you there's a plane there. And as you go around, you're going to meet people who've got different jobs in aviation. So you can see them here. You're going to go and talk to them. And you'll notice that the background, the plane is purple. It's not regular plane colour. So your first challenge would be to go around and speak to these NPCs, non-player characters, and learn a little bit about their roles and responsibilities. So Kelly, you might just want to go in a little bit around an aerospace engineering technician.
Yeah, so an aerospace technician generally acts as the enabler for the full life cycle of an airspace product. So they support the work of aerospace engineers following their processes and procedures, and they could also even be part of the design, production, inspection, testing, and even the maintenance process. And you can see here that we've just got on screen just a bit of information about ways into becoming an aerospace engineering technician. So that's for apprenticeships, college courses, degrees. We can see there the relevant school subjects, so science, technology, and maths, and key skills. And we've already spoken about it. You know, being thorough, working well with your hands, working well as a team. And good IT skills, you know, that digital technology piece that comes in and is quite strong throughout a lot of careers within manufacturing. And so you could be working in manufacturing plants, airports, in hangars, and even remote and private airfields as well.
And I'll just play the video and let you talk a little bit more about some of the other ones that come up as well, Kelly.
Yeah, so as we move around, I think we will get, there we go. He's just explaining a bit more about his role, which I've just done there.
I think next up is the CAD Designer.
He is, yeah. So the next one that we're going to come over to is a CAD Designer. So they're supporting the engineers and producing designs and drawings for the processes, the manuals and the instructions. And this is where we start to see some of that creativity that's needed as some of the key skills. And we can see here, you know, relevant school subjects, not only your typical maths, science, English, but art, design and technology. Really, really strong for a CAD designer within aerospace. And then I think we're going to move on to the manufacturing engineer. And so this is somebody who will develop and optimize manufacturing processes, including continuous improvement activities, such as how to reuse and recycle parts and materials once they've kind of been used already in an aircraft. And again, you're looking at people who can communicate well, work as part of a team, can be flexible in how they do things, but need to get, you know, hands-on, have a really good can-do attitude. It's very much around teamwork. And then we also have stress testers, and this one's quite an interesting role. So this is all about putting a plane through stress to ensure that there are no faults in the design or in the build. So plane wings can be bent upwards for up to 5.2 meters to ensure that there's a lot of flexibility in those wings. And previously a plane was fully submerged into a giant purpose-built pool to test the windows under pressure.
I love that story. So then, as you go through the game, then your next challenge would be to collect materials around the hangar, and you'd be adding those to your inventory. And then when you've got those materials, you go and get clues about where different materials are used on different parts of the plane. So then from this point, so you're going to collect some things that would be really great on a plane, and you're going to collect some things that would be really not very good on a plane for different reasons. So once you've got your items in your inventory, you're going to choose the parts of the plane to put the correct Minecraft block onto, and then that part of the plane will turn plane colour. It's going to turn grey if you are correct. So your challenge in this game really is to learn about material properties, what the most appropriate materials to use on different parts of the plane and the reasons why. So some of the materials might be light and strong, great, but they're very expensive, for example. So that's not going to be something that we'd be able to use on a plane. So Kelly, I think there's a little bit around the roles as well.
Yeah, and so your other challenge is to consider the number of roles and different skills that are going to be required to build a plane from start to finish. So you need to think about the skills a designer might need compared to a stress tester, for example. And then how do you think they might work as a team? How are each of their roles important? And could you build a plane without any of them?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, isn't it? If you didn't have one of those people, actually, it probably all starts to fall apart. You are a cog in a really important wheel, and it's important to remember that. And again, it kind of all comes back to that diversity and the fact that different people have different skills, and we need them all. It's not what everyone thinks it is. We're sort of walking around with spanners and high vis jackets. It's not all that. I'm going to let that play as I just tell you about the other games, just because it's probably nicer to look at than my big head. So there are 3 other games based around aerospace, and there's another one around home energy. So the other aerospace games, you've got one that focuses on coding a broken flight deck. Got one that's around creating sustainable fuels, so that would be sustainable aviation fuel, hydrogen and lithium battery, and then also creating your own plane from scratch to solve a future challenge. There's a few different challenges that we put in there for you, but probably if you've used Minecraft, that's something you're quite familiar with, is building something from scratch. So it gives you a lot of opportunity to do that and get creative and use those creative skills that you need. And the home energy game, that's based on having like a set budget, and you use it to retrofit a home with modern technologies to improve its energy efficiency rating. So you won't be able to afford everything, so you're going to have to make choices between things like insulation, heat pumps, solar panels, low energy lighting, double glazing, and other options to make the home as green as possible within the budget that you've got. And all the way through, you'll be meeting people who've got different jobs, or they've perhaps retrained from one job to another, and now they're contributing towards the industry becoming much greener than it was previously.
And it's critical that we encourage more diversity in engineering. We need people from all different backgrounds. We need girls and women, so we can start to solve the challenges of the future and maximise the opportunities. And I think this has been mentioned by many people on this call so far. It takes a lot of people, a lot of backgrounds, a lot of differences to come together and creatively work on some of the solutions that we need. And as you can see, there are many roles involved in making a plane, and it's the same across all sectors of manufacturing.
So we'd obviously love you to play the games, and I'll put the link in the chat for you, or I can send it to Rachel to share with the group. But if you'd like to play, then we'd be really pleased for you to do that.
Thank you so much, Helena and Kelly. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think my question was going to ask so if we've got young people on the chat, can they access the games themselves, and how do they do that?
Yeah, so if you've got a Microsoft 365 license, you'll be able to get you need the Minecraft Education Edition. That's what you'll need in order to play the Skills Miner game. So if you've got Microsoft 365 license, you can get that. If you've got the Microsoft 365 Education license, you can just do that in school, and it's going to be free to play for you anyway in school. Obviously, I don't know if you've got teachers on the call or if it's just students, but you could always give your teachers a nudge anyway and see if they're willing to do it in like enrichment week or whatever. And then some schools are using it as part of the curriculum now. It all links to the different curriculums across the 4 nations. It's all accredited and yeah, well thought of by those who are using it in schools.
Brilliant. Yeah, so there will be some teachers sort of listening in who are maybe really interested in dropping those into some of their different lessons. So we'll definitely share the information with everyone that's listening or signed up to today, all about the Ingenuity and Skills Miner projects. It sounds fantastic. We are kind of coming to an end of our time, which is very sad. If you did have any questions that you really wanted answering, I can send them on to our speakers for you, and we can get those answers for you. Thank you so much to our speakers, to TT, Kelly and Helena, for joining us and giving up their time today. And hopefully you guys listening at home have really enjoyed the session and have got a lot out of it. You will be sent a survey form. It would be really fantastic to hear your feedback on our event today. And also look out for the recordings of today's session on our FRS platform and YouTube channel. And if you're not already following us, please do. We're on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn and Instagram. And look out for more events like this coming up. So thank you so much again to our speakers and everyone listening at home. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Thanks for having us. Bye.
Bye.